Okay, it says I'm live again. Hey, everybody. Chad, I need you to start chiming in. Let me know if it's working, if it's all good, if you can hear me, if I'm frozen. I just got my YouTube notification, so that worked on my end. I mean, I know I had to sit there and rewatch my last video towards the end so I could see where I left off, and it left off at Dog and Pony Show. So I made a note there so I know where to start. So this will be, even though this is Boys on the Tracks labeled Boys on the Tracks Part 5, this is Part 2 of 5. So the other one's Part 1 of 5. I hate it when the videos split up like that. Okay, let me get Lynn to. Donald's drinking. Hello, Shelly Joe. Getting ready to ride to my house. I'll be listening until I get there. Good deal. Well, you missed the first 45 minutes, but YouTube kicked me off. This is the third time I've had to, the third time already that I've had to stop my videos and get back on. Donald, can you hear me, see me well? Am I buffering? Am I freezing up? Anyone out there? Hello? I just had to take some ibuprofen. They've given me a headache. YouTube's already given me a migraine. I don't want to get this started back up going good till I know. I've been busy at my house. No buffering. Okay. Anybody? I'm waiting on Lynn to chime in because she was one saying it was freezing up and buffering. She's supposed to be checking. If you're watching this on replay, nothing you can do about it if you're watching live. You just have to sit here with me till I make sure. I don't want to go through all this and nobody be there, and you don't want to sit there either. But you can always fast forward. Hey, is it working? They're going to screw you up. Well, they already have 3 times. So this is my third time. Maybe third time's a charm. All right. Lynn said, hey, Lynn, can you tell me if everything looks good and you can hear me and all? Donald says buffering now a little. Lynn, so far so good. Okay. Maybe because you're traveling. Okay, so far so good, Lynn. All right. Let me put they take the fun time out of glasses time. Let's see. Which glasses? Oh, the green glasses. So what I did was I sat here for another 15 minutes or so rewatching the video I just done to see where it ended. And by my account, it ended after I said Harmon's Dog and Pony Show. Does that sound correct to y'all? To you, Lynn? Or anyone out there? Is that where it ended? So I know where to start back. Yeah. Okay. Good deal. All right. Okay. Let me gather myself real quick to figure it out. And Lynn, no, and Donald, I know you watch tons of YouTube. This don't happen on anybody else's channel. Name a channel this happens to. Start going live on X. Lord, that sounds like intimidating. If I could Streamline, which I can do it. I just got to get Streamlab again. Paid for it all those months and didn't even use it, where it streams live on Facebook and everything else. Let me share this link real quick to Facebook. Sorry, guys. It's just me. I don't have a team. I have to do it all. I sure can't see my phone better with the glasses on. Let's see here. Um, Sorry, guys. Gotta share it one more spot and then I'll be done and we can get back to it. Okay. Looks like, okay, I'm done that. Just posted my live to X. Thank you. You posted on Truth Social? Yeah, I need it. Hello, Terry. All right. It sounds like I'm good to go. And according to Terry and Lynn, Dog and Pony Show was the last thing I said. So let me just reread that short paragraph. The deputies, along with their boss, Major Larry Deal, made no secret of their contempt for Harmon and their resentment at being called. Deal derided the proceedings as Harmon's, quote, dog and pony show. But the display left reporters and other observers baffled. Why would Harmon, the anti-drug crusader from Saline County, and the narcotics detectives from Pulaski County be at such visible odds? Y'all tell me if I start buffering, I'm going to be looking and checking every now and then. Only gradually over time as part of the explanation emerged. One piece, it turned out, was that Harmon was not just prosecuting drug offenders, he was a drug offender himself. In 1997, almost a decade after the train deaths grand jury, Harmon would be convicted in federal court of extortion and of using his office for drug racketeering, but that was not known at the time. Nor was it publicly known that at the time of Harmon's much publicized grand jury, Deal, Lane, and Campbell were part of a joint drug task force that had the special prosecutor under investigation. Years later, when I interviewed Campbell for my book, The Boys on the Tracks, this was written by Mara Leverett. It's Arkansas Times article, Out of Control in Lennox County, written by Mara Leverett. Years later, when I interviewed Campbell for my book, The Boys on the Tracks, he told me, quote, my personal opinion was that Harmon used that grand jury to find out what he could about who had information on him and to make it appear like we were suspects. He continued, I believe he called us blatantly for the sole purpose of trying to discredit us so that in case he got arrested and charged with drugs as a result of the federal investigation, he could say it was retaliation. Harmon's lengthy investigation into the train deaths case resulted in nothing. No one was ever charged with the murders. Though members of the grand jury prepared a 5-page report, Judge Cole ordered that it not be released. Cole then praised the fruitless exercise when he said, thank you for your time. Y'all are just so wonderful for being sick, but we're not doing a daggum thing with any of this. Quote, I think if we've accomplished, this was Judge John Cole at the end of the grand jury. I think if we've accomplished nothing else, he said, we've at least caused the citizens of this county to know that there is a body, there is a way, there are people with dedication, there are people with perseverance who will do everything humanly possible and within the law to see that the administration of justice in this county is served. Are you kidding me? Did he really say that? He really said that, guys. Am I buffering? Somebody chime in, tell me I'm okay. I'm paranoid now. Terry, Lynn. I assume I'm okay. I'm just so paranoid. But Harmon's grand jury investigation, all good. You're good. Oh, I got that from both of y'all. Thank you. But Harmon's grand jury investigation was not the only thing that took a dive. The drug task force investigation of Harmon, in which Campbell and Lane were involved, also came to naught. In fact, in June 1991, 3 years after Harmon called Campbell and Lane to appear before his grand jury, and 6 years before Harmon was finally convicted of drug racketeering, Chuck Banks, this is what I was talking about in the previous video where that got cut, I had to cut it off and restart this one. The U.S. attorney at the time called a press conference. It's a famous press conference. You can find it on YouTube, specifically to refute the reports that investigators have found any evidence linking Harmon to drugs. Quite frankly, Banks said there is none. We found no evidence of any drug-related misconduct by public officials in Saline County. Now, I remember after me digging and investigating on this case, come to find out, Harmon had a video on Banks down at the racetracks. That's where they always like to go. And he set up Chuck Banks with a prostitute without Chuck Banks knowing it and put cameras in the room. And Chuck Banks fell for it. And then Dan Harmon's story, I had this was from an eyewitness, Levitt. He was on the task force. And he said that Dan Harmon stormed in Chuck Banks' office with the video and said, this is going to your wife if you don't drop the charges today. And that's when he came out with that abrupt press conference. And that's what happened. That's the true story behind why everything was dropped on Dan Harmon. Quite frankly, Banks said there is none. We found no evidence of any drug-related misconduct by public officials in Saline County. Skeptics, including Linda Eyes, were left believing that no one involved in drug investigations in Central Arkansas could be trusted. You think? Her sense of betrayal intensified as Harmon's unchecked conduct grew increasingly erratic. Slowly, others came to share her opinion, to the point that about a year before Harmon's arrest, an Arkansas Times profile of him was headlined, Out of Control in Saline County. The mistrust Ives had developed extended to Campbell Lane as well. And the years after the grand jury, as Ives sorted through police records on various failed investigations into her son's murders, she had come across police files that seemed to her to support Harmon's suggestion that they were her son's killers. She's talking about Campbell Lane. She had seen, for instance, the report of an interview that FBI agents had conducted with Dan Lassiter. He was big in the MENA stuff. He was like this with Bill Clinton. She had seen, for instance, the report of an interview the FBI agents had conducted with Dan Lassiter, a Little Rock bond dealer, after his arrest in 1986 for distributing cocaine. According to the FBI report, Lassiter said he'd known he was being watched by federal agents because he had been tipped off by none other than Jay Campbell. I've suspected that Campbell was crooked, and reports she found in the Arkansas State Police file strengthened that view. In one interview conducted a year after the murders, a man named Ronnie Godwin told state police investigators that on the night of the deaths, he'd seen two men whom he believed to be police officers near a phone booth at a grocery store in the vicinity of the tracks. With the men were two teenage boys. He said he first thought the cops had caught the boys stealing from the store, but then Godwin reported he saw the larger of the two men push one of the boys against the phone booth. The other man stood over the second boy, who was kneeling on the ground with his head down. I've learned that Godwin had given a similar statement to Saline County Deputy Prosecutor Richard Garrett. According to Garrett's report, Godwin said, quote, I cannot tell much about the officers except the one pushing the subject against the phone booth, and he was about 200 pounds, 6 foot tall, with sort of long brown hair. As I stopped my car, I saw them pick the boy up off the ground and throw them into the back seat. According to Godwin, the car had police hubcaps, 3 antennas on the trunk, and a spotlight on the side. Talk about a very specific eyewitness. Okay. And remember, there was Sketchy Jerry, who saw the whole thing go down as well. Ronnie Godwin, I think, was the one coming from the bar that night and didn't want DWI. He saw the unmarked car, so he pulled over and then saw him go down dead end road. So he waited, and so he saw the whole thing. And then Sketchy Jerry identified Campbell and Lane, and so did Keith Coney identify Campbell and Lane. And Keith Coney was murdered just a few months after Kevin Ives and Don Henry. But according to Godwin, the car had police hubcaps, 3 antennas on the trunk, and a spotlight on the side. Very, very specific. Am I still good? Another report Ives discovered in the file seemed to corroborate Godwin's account. This was of an interview conducted in 1990, 3 years after the murder, with a nightclub owner named Mike Crook. Nothing in the file suggested that Crook was aware of Godwin's statements. Crook told the police that on the morning the boys' bodies were found, the man he knew only as Jerry, he got his nickname was Sketchy Jerry, had come into his club claiming to have seen the boys the night before smoking and joining at the Red Check grocery store. According to Crook, Jerry said he saw 2 men in plain clothes pull up in an unmarked police car. Jerry identified one of the men as Lane, whom he known from the Benton Police Department. He said the other man, whom he did not know, was larger. The interview noted Crook states that the boys and these 2 cops got into an argument, and the 2 cops beat the boys unconscious and threw them into the car and then drove off. Yes, I'm still good. Okay, good. Crook also told the state police investigator that the manager of another bar, who was himself murdered shortly after the train deaths, talking about Keith McCaskill, had told friends that he feared Campbell and Lane, the interview noted. Crook states that before Keith McCaskill was killed, stabbed 113 times, McCaskill told him that Kirk Lane and Joe Campbell of the Pulaski County Sheriff's Office were following him around, and he was afraid they were going to kill him. Ives believed the account. When California filmmaker Pat Matriciana sought her help in making a documentary video about the case, she agreed. Matriciana's film titled Obstruction of Justice, The Mina Connection, examined the still unsolved murders of Don Henry and Kevin Ives and Keith McCaskill, along with some of what was known about corruption at the time in Saline County. It ended with a screen that read, all good still? Okay. It ended with a screen that read, Suspects implicated in Ives Henry murders and cover-up. Beneath that headline ran the names of 6 people, all related to law enforcement. Campbell and Lane's name were among them. The 2 Pulaski County deputies sued Matriciana for libel in federal court. When the case went to trial in August 1999, the deputies' attorneys called a couple of journalists, including me, as a witness on their behalf. I testified, for example, that I had by then written a book about the Henry Ives case that included Godwin and Crook's statements, but I did not claim, as had Matriciana's film, that Campbell Lane were implicated in the murders. The pair's lawyers also called a parade of law enforcement officers, particularly from the FBI, to attest to their client's professionalism and good character. Bob Govar was one of them. got on the stand and testified to what an outstanding young man Jay Campbell was, and Kirk Lane. Let's see. The pairs, also called Prey law enforcement officers, particularly from the FBI, to test their client's professionalism and good character. Mike Smith, supervisor of the FBI's organized crime and drug program in Little Rock, described Campbell as completely dependable, a man with a lot of street savvy, and a friend. Another Little Rock FBI agent, Brian Marshall, described Lane and Campbell both as very competent law enforcement officers and of the highest character. James Handley Jr., a former FBI agent who at the time worked as head of security at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock, said he had never known Campbell to be anything but honest and forthright. Howdy, everybody from Huntsville, Alabama. Well, hello, Primitive Outlaw, all the way from Huntsville. Yay, we have an out-of-stater. Well, Donald's from out of state, too. Hey, Primitive Outlaw, we've been having issues. I've had to restart my video like 3 times, so if it starts buffering or freezing up, y'all chime in and chat and let me know. Don't let me go on and waste my voice if I'm going to have to start a new video. Hopefully everything's good now. 3rd time's a charm, maybe. Richard Stephen Holland, a former Benton Rick Holland, that's who ended up appointing Kirk Lane as police chief in Benton back in 2009, I believe it was. There was an article called Burning Benton. We'll get to it all. Richard Stephen Holland, a former Benton police officer, called Campbell a fine fellow who believes in law enforcement. Sheriff Donnie Ford of Dallas County rated Campbell among the top law enforcement officers he knew, adding, "I've trusted him with my life." On a personal note, Campbell's older brother, Stephen G. Pete Campbell, I'm in here like a hair and a biscuit. Okay. On a more personal note, Campbell's older brother, Stephen G. Pete Campbell, testified that the video had harmed his brother by dashing his hopes to run for sheriff of Garland County. Pete Campbell told the court that the video's claims had made it hard to raise funds for a campaign. When Campbell himself took the stand, he testified that at the time of the Ives Henry murders, he was working as sergeant over the Pulaski County Narcotics Division. And what was he doing in Saline County over there with the railroad tracks? Had no business over there. He discounted Crook and Godwin as unreliable sources, noted that police investigative files often contain unfound statements, and complained that Matriciana had never contacted him to get his side of the story. As an officer as well as a person, Campbell said, "I was raised that a handshake was a contract. Your word was something you lived by." He said release of the video had left him with no opportunity to clear his name. Little Rock attorney John Wesley Hall represented Matriciana. He began his questioning of Campbell with an air of familiarity. "I guess it's fair to say we've been professional adversaries for a long time," Hall asked Campbell. "Almost 18 years, sir," Campbell agreed. "I've had cases where I've actually accused you guys of throwing down, planting drugs in cases," Hall said. "Yes, sir, you certainly have." Throughout the trial, Hall tried to establish that police officers are often in the line that the First Amendment protects citizens' rights to voice suspicions about public officials, and that police officers do not go to court claiming they've been defamed every time such an unpleasant thing happens. But the jury concluded that Campbell and Lane had been right to bring their case to court. It's got all overturned. It awarded them a total of $598,750 in damages. During the trial, Ives had wondered why Campbell's co-workers, and especially Bob Govar, that bothered her for years until she and I met and started talking several years ago. Co-workers, his fellow Pulaski County deputies, were not called as character witnesses. Oh, never mind. I thought that was fixing to say something else. She wondered why certain people like Bob Govar would testify on Campbell's behalf when he was the one supposedly, he was over the investigation at the U.S. Attorney's Office investigating Campbell and Lane, supposedly. And still good. Okay, thank God. So I thought that was going to say something else, so my bad. During the trial, Ives have wondered why Campbell's co-workers, his fellow Pulaski County deputies, were not called as character witnesses. 5 months after Campbell's successful libel trial, she believes she understood the reason. In February 2000, Pulaski County Sheriff Randy Johnson fired Campbell. Johnson outlined his reasons in a letter to Campbell that was supplied to the media. The letter claimed that Campbell had bullied subordinates using, quote, intimidation and the authority of his rank to pressure them not to take part-time jobs for less than what Campbell wanted employers to pay. In addition, Johnson wrote Campbell had created a blackball list of deputies who had not submitted to Campbell's demands. Johnson wrote that Campbell had then circulated the list in a memo. Campbell sued Johnson over the firing, but this time he lost, and soon after that, he suffered another legal blow. Matriciana, the filmmaker, had appealed the Little Rock jury's verdict, where they had won $598,750 in the libel lawsuit. They appealed it. The filmmaker appealed the Little Rock jury's verdict. And in January 2001, almost a year after Campbell was fired, the U.S. 8th Circuit Court of Appeals sided with Matriciana. So that's probably the biggest win I think Linda Ives would say if she were still here. And I think she has said it to me more than once. That's like the biggest win that she's seen out of all this. That to see them that jury's verdict get overturned. So he lost his lawsuit against Johnson over his firing, and then he got his verdict overturned and by the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals and lost his lawsuit there. The appellate court opinion began. The record in this case, now get this. This is what the appellate court said. The appellate court's opinion began, quote, the record in this case reads like a John Grisham novel. I mean, even they were astounded. 21 pages later, after a review of the trial testimony, the appellate court concluded, all in all, statements and rumors corroborating the Lane Campbell scenario or implicating them as suspects imminent in varying degrees of detail from multiple sources. The opinion continued, quote, viewing each statement in isolation, there may have been reasons to doubt the veracity of Godwin, Crook, or Harmon. However, given the corroboration by multiple sources, we do not see obvious reasons to doubt the accuracy of the various reports. Finally, the justices noted, while we are not aficionados of conspiracy theories, we suppose that if Matriciana's assertions were true, there would be, quote, inherent difficulties in verifying or refuting such a claim given the alleged pervasive involvement of law enforcement in his theory. Wow, that's astounding. Am I still all good? Campbell was now out $309,750 he had expected to receive in damages and also out of a job. He rebounded by starting a detective agency in Lone Oak called Investigative Consultant. That led to his hiring in 2003 as the city's chief of police. So it was 2003 he got hired on as the city's chief of police, Lone Oak. That began Lone Oak County Sheriff Roberson's acquaintance with Campbell. I started out thinking our people would work together, the sheriff said of the city police chief. I soon found out that wasn't the case. When it came to working drug cases, Roberson said, I found out that if we were out in the county, they liked working with us, but they didn't want us joining them in the city. Still good. Okay, yes. The sheriff added, and my narcotics officers, he wants everything right or he won't do it. He won't violate a subject's Fourth Amendment rights. He didn't like the way they did business. Within 2 years, Campbell, the private investigator turned police chief, was under investigation himself. State police investigator Charles McElmore of Company B in Pine Bluff was asked to check out allegations that certain inmates from the Arkansas Department of Correction who had been loaned to the city of Lone Oak were not being properly managed. This goes into Anthony Shane Scott that everybody's got to go back and watch from last week or Sunday, I guess I did. You don't believe I've done videos within less than a week of each other. I'm proud of myself. Oh my goodness. Where did I? Okay. the about the state police investigator Macklemore of Company B in Pine Bluff was asked to check out allegations that certain inmates from the Arkansas Department of Correction who had been loaned to the city of Lone Oak were not being properly managed. Under Arkansas Act 309, hundreds of inmates are allowed to work for other public agencies while being housed in local jails. Other public agencies, not putting a sidewalk in for the chief of police, not mowing the U.S. attorney's lawn, not hanging the Christmas lights for the mayor, not working on boats, okay, personal boats. Last Sunday, yeah, it was last Sunday. Donald, you're on the ball. Anyway, they're allowed to work other public agencies while being housed in local jails. The plan is to help communities while also relieving crowding in the state penitentiaries. Macklemore now this is where it doesn't ever mention Anthony Shane Scott, but this is who they're talking about because Anthony Shane Scott, as I read to y'all last Sunday, did all this, that was involved in all this, and he's dead now. Macklemore interviewed inmates who had been to Lone Oak. He would later write, during the course of this investigation, numerous irregularities were divulged by prisoners. Those irregularities included drug use, sex, and personal use of prisoners to perform personal services for various individuals. According to Macklemore, inmates reported fixing an air conditioner for Mayor Thomas Privet, hanging Christmas lights on Privet's house, working in the mayor's garden, and repairing his porch. They also reported working for Campbell. The prisoners disclosed that they had put in a sidewalk at the chief's house that went to the swimming pool, Macklemore wrote. So Anthony Shane Scott was one of these prisoners that was doing this stuff. And he was the prisoner having sex with Kelly Campbell that it gets to. The prisoners also refurbished the chief's party barge and took a motor off an old boat and put it on the party barge. This work was done in the old Otasco building owned by Mayor Thomas Privet. Macklemore noted that both Campbell and Privet had admitted that the services were performed, but claimed that the prisoners had been paid by the city. I mean, come on. By then, however, other issues loomed larger. Prisoner Andrew Baker disclosed that Chief J. Campbell's wife had a very close relationship with at least two of the 309s. And he's talking about Anthony Shane Scott as being one of them. Macklemore wrote, Baker disclosed that the chief's wife, Kelly Campbell, had brought a fifth of vodka, a fifth of gin, and a fifth of Crown Royal and other bottles of unknown alcoholic substances to the jail and given it to the 309s that wanted it. Baker also reported that Kelly Campbell had brought marijuana into the jail for prisoners, given one prisoner a cell phone. Well, that prisoner was Anthony Shane Scott. We know that for a fact. He had a cell phone because he talked about in the article I read last week that she would call and call and call and call. She was obsessed with him. So given one prisoner a cell phone, which they used to communicate with each other regularly, allowed photos of herself to be taken in various intimate poses inside the old Otasco building while inmates were working on the party barge, had sex with inmates 18 to 20 times in various places in and around Lone Oak, including the Holiday Inn Express, the press box at the ballpark, the Campbell's home on Cherry Street, and the chief's office at the Lone Oak Police Department. That chief being Jay Campbell, her husband's office. And she paid one inmate $260 to keep his mouth shut. That was Anthony Shane Scott, because in the article it talked about that we read, that's who she paid, but it was the amount she had paid him. Officers at the police department reportedly confirmed that the chief's wife was having a relationship with the 309s and was coming and going freely from the jail. According to Macklemore, they said that they could not keep the chief's wife out of the jail, that when they tried, she became irate, that when they tried to discuss it with the chief, he would not discuss it, and that when Campbell learned that dispatchers were documenting his wife's comings and goings in the jail log, he became irate. Nor did the reports Macklemore was hearing stop with sex. During an interview with another witness involved in this case, he wrote, "Several names of potential victims of theft were given to me." Macklemore outlined statements from 4 Lonoke County residents, all of whom reportedly said that after visits from one or both of the Campbells, they had found prescription narcotics missing. Kelly Ratcliffe this is crazy. This is crazy right here. Kelly Ratcliffe, not Campbell, but Ratcliffe, was one of the 4. She reported that following surgery in 2004, she had been prescribed the drug Meprogam for pain, according to Macklemore. Ratcliffe put the medicine beside her on her computer desk in the bedroom. Kelly Campbell brought food over to the house shortly after her arrival home from the hospital. Kelly Campbell stayed for about 10 minutes. The medication was there prior to Campbell coming to the house and was missing after Campbell left. That night, Kelly Ratcliffe began to hurt and called Kelly Campbell, who brought Ratcliffe 2 pills from Ratcliffe's prescription. She called. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? She didn't even, I mean, she didn't even bring her bottle. She kept them and just brought her 2 pills, 2 of her own pills. And who does that? People like Kelly and Jay Campbell do that. And let me tell you, they do things like that, they'll do a lot worse. And they have. We know. Jay Campbell's a murderer. The medication was there prior to Campbell coming to the house and was missing after Campbell left. That night, Kelly Ratcliffe began to hurt, so she called Kelly Campbell, who brought Ratcliffe 2 pills from Ratcliffe's prescription. Then there was the jewelry. Macklemore heard that at one point Kelly Campbell had pawned a lot of jewelry in Little Rock and returned with approximately $7,000 in $100 bills. Am I still good? I'm assuming I am, but somebody can tell me if I'm still good. He turned to Leads Online, a website that allows criminal investigators to access transactions from participating pawn shops. Several police agencies in Arkansas use the Leads Online system. All good. Okay, good. Thank you. And according to an official of the Arkansas Pawnbrokers Association, Jay Campbell, quote, was well aware of the database because he was a Pulaski County officer when Pulaski County was looking into buying in. Macklemore traced a couple of transactions made by Kelly Harrison Campbell. One was at a Little Rock pawn shop called Pacer Limited. Tim Collier, one of Pacer's owners, told Macklemore that he was raised in Hot Springs, where Jay Campbell grew up, and that he'd known him since the 5th grade. Collier told the investigator that in late June 2005, Jay Campbell had come to the shop saying his wife had inherited some antique jewelry, which he wanted to leave at the shop on consignment. Collier had made photocopies of the jewelry and of Kelly Campbell's driver's license, which he turned over to Macklemore. Collier said he sold the jewelry and paid Campbell $4,000. However, according to Macklemore, a few days later on a Sunday morning, Jay Campbell called Collier's cell phone, panicked, saying that he had to get the jewelry back. All good. Okay. Jay Campbell gave Collier 2 or 3 different stories about why he had to have the jewelry back. Collier related that he had to go to 3 different customers to get their jewelry back, but that he was able to get all of it back with the exception of a pair of earrings. He told Jay Campbell who had these earrings, and Jay Campbell obtained those himself. I mean, the gall. The investigator then spoke with some neighbors of the Campbells, Leon Hill and his wife. Now, Leon Hill and his wife were like best friends with Bob and Bob's wife at the time, Rose. They lived right next door too. Like Bob built his house right across the street from Jay and Kelly Campbell, and Bob, my father-in-law at the time, and the Hills they're very dear friends. And he stole from, and Bob's still his best friends with Jay Campbell, even after he stole from his best friend. The investigator then spoke with some neighbors of the Campbells, Leon Hill and his wife, who had reportedly had some jewelry stolen, Macklemore wrote. The Hills were shown a picture of the jewelry and asked if they recognized it. Miss Hill stated that the photocopied pictures were photos of her jewelry. She then related that on July 9th, 2005, she was getting ready to go to a friend's party in Little Rock when she realized that her jewelry was missing. Mrs. Hill related that she was extremely upset and sick that her old wedding band and other jewelry were missing. The next day, Mrs. Hill approached Jay Campbell and informed him that she would get her jewelry back even if she had to go to the Arkansas State Police or higher ups. A few days later, Jay Campbell brought her jewelry back to her with a story about how his brother had come to visit him and taken the key that he and Kelly Campbell kept to the Hill home and made a copy and then came in and took the Hill's jewelry. First off, why would he make a copy? Why wouldn't he just take the... Oh my goodness. Miss Hill demanded her 2 keys back from Jay Campbell and had her locks changed. Disturbing in another way were allegations that Campbell had abused his police authority, particularly his power to arrest. According to the warrant filed at his own arrest, Campbell conspired with Little Rock bail bondsman Bobby Cox to have an intermediary persuade a man named Roger Light to cook a batch of methamphetamine so that Light could be arrested. According to the warrant filed at his own arrest, Campbell conspired with Little Rock bail bondsman Bobby Cox to have an intermediary persuade a man named Roger Light to cook a batch of methamphetamine so that Light could be arrested. Set him up. They could go that far. We know this. Okay, I'm still good. The idea, according to the warrant, was that Campbell and Cox could then, quote, force Light to help them catch an unnamed fugitive who had jumped a substantial bond underwritten by Cox. Deviant. The intermediary who set up Light expected that, in return, Campbell would help him clear his own record. He reported, however, that when he asked for their assistance, Cox threatened him and Campbell told him to go get screwed. Campbell told him he got screwed. As a result of that exchange, the intermediary reportedly decided he had nothing to lose by spilling his story to the state police. So he did. By February, when Sheriff Robertson called the Campbells to his office, the situation was clearly no joking matter. Campbell stood accused of multiple felonies, including conspiracy to manufacture methamphetamine, hindering apprehension or prosecution, criminal conspiracy to commit residential burglary, theft by receiving, and theft of services. His wife, the mayor, and 2 bail bondsmen faced numerous related charges. And this time, when Campbell heads to court, the national media will be watching. Some of the faces expected to appear are likely to be familiar. Immediately after Campbell's arrest, Linda Ives wrote letters reminding Lone Oak officials that she had tried to warn them about Campbell when he was hired as the city's police chief. John Wesley Hall, who beat back Campbell's libel lawsuit for filmmaker Pat Matriciana, has been hired this time around to represent Campbell's co-defendant Bobby Cox. Campbell himself will be represented by Hall's partner Patrick Binka, who he's involved in the West Memphis 3 murder case, Patrick Binka. And coming out of retirement to preside over the trial was none other than Judge John Cole of Saline County. So that, I need to give myself a break real quick before I read this other